that's about to hit Jamaica in a few hours. So if you guys could tune in and listen to the news, if you haven't started preparing, it's time to do so.
It's not just Beryl, though, that we're concerned with. We also are talking 96L. This is following in the footsteps of Beryl, but nowhere near expected to be this historic and powerful storm that its sister storm once was. Over the next 7 days, only a 20% chance of development. Every time we come back to this storm, night in and night out, we have watched it diminish with its chances. The atmosphere is shifting to a less conducive environment. While Beryl reaching Category 5 status is so unprecedented in speaking to the warm water levels, it was really able to find that perfect pocket of atmosphere in order to form. It's not so perfect for 96L, which is good news for portions of the Lesser Antilles, as they are still in the main throes of their cleanup process. Tropical cyclone frequency, 96% of the season remaining, and we've already seen a Category 4 landfall. That is enough to warn people along the United States coastline. We need to make those storm preps now, because as we get into peak hurricane season, the waters are only going to be getting warmer, and the atmospheric conditions are only going to open up for more of these tropical waves off the coast of Africa, like Beryl originated as, to move through the main development region. We'll move away from the tropics, though, and end things on a little bit of a lighter note. Let's talk about the 4th of July, lighting up the fireworks, celebrating our wonderful country that we all live in. What spots, though, might need to reschedule their plans or pull them indoors? Some spots are going to be the upper Midwest, but for July 3rd, for the most part, barring the I-10, mostly clear. For the I-95, New York, we're seeing partly cloudy skies. Out west, the heat is going to be a key focal point, but the sunshine will be well in abundance for you. As we head into Independence Day, specifically for the Ozarks, the Ohio River Valley, and the Northern Plains, we're talking thunderstorms. Thunderstorms will shift a little farther out towards the east, bringing rain to Chicago as well as New York City, and even D.C. could see some showers as well. That could maybe hinder some of your firework displays. A couple showers, not going to be a big deal. It's when we're talking thunderstorm activity and torrential downpours, which could be isolated but still possible for certain large cities like Oklahoma City as well as Minneapolis. For Friday, July 5th, we have still more impacts from rain for the Mississippi River Valley and now extending in towards the Lone Star State. One thing that we're not highlighting here is as we get into the 4th of July weekend, which is Saturday and Sunday, Beryl will potentially be moving into the Gulf of Mexico and could be bringing tropical impacts to the Texas coastline. So keep checking in here with Fox Weather. Download the Fox Weather app. We are your Hurricane HQ. We will keep you updated as we track the latest on Beryl's progress. Here's the severe storm threat for the next few days, whether you're traveling to your vacation destination or maybe you're wondering, what am I going to see for my 4th of July plans? For tomorrow, we are expecting a level 2 out of 5 in 2 particular spots, one for the Central Plains, the other for the Ohio River Valley, extending into the Ozarks. On Thursday, a little more centralized for Kansas City, Joplin, and St. Louis, and we could be talking damaging winds in excess of 60, 70 plus miles per hour. The exclusive Fox model showing you that by Wednesday morning, more of a linear system riding a cold front extending throughout the region. Some of these discrete storms that will pop up could produce the chance of a tornado, but it's the overall upscale growth as we get into Thursday into the evening and Wednesday evening as well, where we see these storms grow in larger clusters. And when you have these Boeing-esque segments like we're showing you here that the exclusive Fox model is picking up on throughout St. Louis, heading into southern Illinois, that's the damaging wind threat that would be a big problem for any celebrations you've got going. But more scattered showers and thunderstorms expected throughout Thursday evening and even taking you into the weekend. This isn't going to be consistent rain. You will see some breaks where you can get outside, maybe flip the burgers or throw the hot dogs out onto the grill. But just know that rain is in your future if you live really towards the north of I-40 and into portions of the Mississippi River Valley. But speaking of the Mississippi River, we are still tracking continued flooding impacts. With more rain extending into these river basins, we could be talking that threat for flooding for the coming weeks ahead. And here's the latest view in from the hurricane hunters from inside Beryl's eye. You can see the super tall stadium-like eye wall with that bright blue sky ahead. We just want to put it out there. I'm available for flights if they need an extra hand. Thanks for watching Fox Weather at Night.
Listen carefully. You'll hear a rhythm in the markets. The markets compose their own tunes, and once you learn to listen for them, you'll catch yourself humming along.
You got to crank it up.
Crank it up. Crank it up.
Yeah.
It's the perfect blend of flavor and heat. I put that on everything.
This week only at City's 4th of July event. Fire up the savings with up to 25% off doorbusters, plus 10% off store-wide or 36 months no interest. City Furniture, designed for love.
Welcome into Fox Weather at Night. I'm meteorologist Haley Meyer. A deadly Category 4 Hurricane Beryl has set its sights now on Jamaica. Hurricane watches are out now for Mexico, including the Yucatan
Welcome back,
Peninsula
guys.
and
Welcome
popular
back.
tourist
Thank you for
destination
watching.
of Cancun. As the Caribbean islands begin to assess the damage left behind, let's take a look at some of the video we've seen coming out of today. And this is from Coconut Bay Resort in St. Lucia. You can hear the winds whipping. Winds at this spot reached at least tropical storm force. And you can see the winds also whipping through the streets and producing intense heavy rain, almost like a power washer, just rolling through the streets. But it's been similar scenes for other islands in the Caribbean. This was the storm surge coming ashore in Martinique. Seawater rushing onto the streets. The north side of Beryl circulation was pushing the water towards this particular island. And then look at the waves tossing these boats like nothing. Incredibly dangerous seas have been seen all over. And in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, damage was widespread. These areas took the brunt of Category 4 Beryl at landfall. We expect that as infrastructure is restored, more and more images like these will be coming in. And so as Beryl pulls away from Barbados and the rest of the Leeward Islands, it will set sights on places like Haiti and especially Jamaica in the next 24 hours. Beryl has been an impressive storm every single way that you look at it. And if Barbados and St. Vincent and the Grenadines were any cautionary tale, Jamaica needing to get their storm preps finished, as Wednesday will bring the brunt of the system as it approaches. This was Beryl's landfall. This occurred on July 1st near Carriacou Island, which is in Grenada, 150-mile-per-hour max winds, so it's a high-end Category 4. And if you were watching Fox Weather at night, last night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, Beryl was upgraded to a Category 5. Now, similar to tornadoes, hurricanes also go through this cycling effect. They will weaken as they begin to gather their bearings once again, and that's what we've seen as it was then downgraded again back down
Okay,
to
guys,
Category
if
4.
you're from
No matter
Jamaica
what,
or the
though,
Cayman
Category 4,
Islands
Category
listening
5,
in, you
the
guys
same
need
impacts
to
are going
get
to be felt.
prepared. The
Catastrophic
storm
surge and
is
potentially
heading your
life-threatening.
way.
And unfortunately, Beryl has turned deadly for some people out onto the Caribbean islands.
Jamaica, you
Will
need to
Beryl
get
continue to
prepared.
strengthen?
I
The odds
can't
of
say
that not
this
necessarily very
enough.
high as it approaches even more land masses, and Jamaica is a pretty mountainous area, so mountains can shred the core of these storms. But from the latest advisories, maintaining 150 miles per hour for the wind speeds, and the millibars going up from what we witnessed last night, from 930 or so millibars up to 943. So in theory, we're trending in the right direction for Beryl weakening. But still, as it approaches Jamaica, expected to be a major hurricane. The wind speeds expected at 125 miles per hour. By Thursday, 100 miles per hour as it cuts to the south of Cuba and heads towards the Yucatan Peninsula. In the latest updates, though, the forecast tracks slightly pulling this more into the Gulf of Mexico and could potentially impact portions of the Texas coastline, especially the southern area where popular tourist destinations like South Padre Island and Corpus Christi are in that general region. Here are the tropical alerts. Jamaica is certainly the spot that we want to focus on in the next 24 hours, especially with Beryl moving quite quickly towards this particular island. Initially, they had a little more time, but not looking to be the case with tropical storm force or even hurricane force wind gusts approaching by Wednesday afternoon. The Cayman Islands up next, also under hurricane warnings. And this fairly new for Tuesday evening, hurricane watch for the eastern edge of the Yucatan, but as I mentioned, includes Cancun. This is the exclusive Fox model showing you that rotation within Beryl. It is expected to go into the Gulf of Mexico, and more models, as I mentioned, pulling it north, and the Fox model also following that general trend that we've seen with a lot of hurricane models that we look at. I talk about models all the time. I've said it a lot. These are the particular ensemble low positions. So all of these different model runs, where are they taking that low pressure? The consensus through the Yucatan, but then pulling and potentially impacting Brownsville. Could we get some tropical alerts for the United States in the coming days? The sign is maybe, and we're trending in that direction. So especially for any 4th of July tourists heading out to South Texas to enjoy the holiday and stay through the weekend, continue to check back in on this forecast as we get the latest on the details. And the impacts of Hurricane Beryl have been devastating. Multiple deaths have been reported as a result of the storm. Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, joined Fox Weather with the latest update.
In parts of my country, the impact has been devastating. In the southern Grenadine Islands of Union Island and Mairo and Canawan, and on the rest of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there's been severe damage. In Union Island and Mairo, and to some extent in Canawan, 90% of the houses are affected. Union Island is blown down. And on the main island of St. Vincent, we have substantial loss of buildings, houses, schools, a couple police stations. Agricultural loss is significant.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to my channel.
We have a major setback, and our task is to turn that setback into an advance.
Oh, boy, you know, I can imagine that this is so difficult for the people on your island. Tell me, you just mentioned that 90% of homes on your island were severely damaged. Have you, in your experience, have you ever seen anything quite like this before?
Well, as I indicated, our country has several islands. It's an archipelago of 32 islands, and 9 of which are inhabited. And the southernmost ones are the ones which have been absolutely devastated, and the rest damaged very seriously. The 90% I referred to is the islands in the south, or the south of the chain. But this is going to cost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to recover. The loss and damage, they're huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah, it is going to take a while to recover, that is for sure. Tell me really quickly, is there power? Do people have access to power, to fresh drinking water? Is that also, has that been compromised?
The electricity in most of the country, overwhelmingly in the country, is off. And water this morning is off in significant parts of the country. So we are having some challenges in those respects. We should get back electricity in the city, the main city, perhaps in 2 days' time. 50% of the country in another week, and it'll probably take over 2 weeks to get back all of the country. A lot of work is to be done. We're doing a lot of cleaning up at the moment. Look, when a Category 4 hurricane, it hits you directly as in the southern islands. And when it gives you a blow, even though it's moving not with the center or the eye over you, what happens is still devastating. And that's what we have experienced. You know, when you're in a house and you hear the howling winds of 140, 145 miles per hour, it's a terrifying thing. It's awesome, the power of nature.
It's terrifying.
And we have to urge all of humanity and the major emitters in the world for us to move to net zero. This climate change matter is a very serious one, and there's a responsibility on the major emitters for us to move to net zero and for us to deal with adaptation and mitigation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your words will ring, and we are hearing you loud and clear. Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time, and our most sincere thoughts and prayers are with you, your family, and everyone that has been affected in your community.
I appreciate my brother. Thank you. Absolutely.
And here we go. The 4th of July, just around the corner. The countdown officially begins. What you're looking at is New York City last year. But wherever you are, the big question, I'm sure, is, will the fireworks show be a go? So let's go ahead and take a look at the forecast. We'll talk travel, though. Will you even be able to get to your destination? The weather is a bit of a hindrance for the upper Midwest, but if it's not the weather, it's going to be the amount of people. 2.7 million passing through a TSA checkpoint just yesterday. Those numbers should calm down as we get closer to the 4th, but ramp up right back up again as we finish out the weekend and people make their way home. The airport delay forecast, I'll click through this fast, but keep an eye on any airports you might be flying into. My eyes are on the few that I will be traveling through in the next couple of days. Not everyone is going to see clear skies. Some delays are expected. No major delays, though, so at least we have that silver lining for you. But one thing
This week only at City's 4th of July event. Fire up the savings with up to 25% off doorbusters, plus 10% off store-wide or 36 months no interest. City Furniture, designed for love.
Ohio River Valley. Chicago comes out on the drier end of things into the morning. The storms just to the south, but southern Illinois will see a dose of rain. The I-10 corridor seeing some isolated showers, maybe a few thunderstorms. Nothing too atypical for beach communities. As we head into Independence Night with the fireworks shows in full display, Minneapolis could see some concerns. Chicago, some rain, but a light drizzle shouldn't be too much to affect those displays. For Oklahoma City, thunderstorms are expected. Things do begin to clear up for the I-10 and I-20 corridors. For the Northeast, we are looking at some rain, but should be okay for the day. And here's a view of Beryl from aboard the International Space Station. Certainly a humbling sight. We've got more on the tropics coming up. Thanks for watching Fox Weather at Night.
You got to frank it up.
Crank it up. Crank it up. Yeah.
It's the perfect blend of flavor and heat. I put that on everything.
If you listen carefully, you'll hear a rhythm in the markets. The markets compose their own tunes, and once you learn to listen for them, you'll catch yourself humming along.
Premium clothing for golfers. Wherever golf happens. Johnny O.
And this is a visible satellite loop of Beryl at sunrise on Tuesday morning. And this was as it was making its approach towards the Leeward Islands and heading in towards the Caribbean Sea. Jamaica, now the next island on alert with hurricane warnings in effect. Beryl's not the only thing we're tracking though in the tropics. We do have Invest 96L. At one point given a much better chance at development, now down to about 20%. The overall atmospheric pattern is shifting to a less conducive pocket of atmosphere. Beryl really was able to sneak in there and become this Goldilocks storm, found the just right environment to develop into this monstrous storm. For Beryl specifically, now down to a Category 4, but still impressive and historic on so many accounts. At one point was a Category 5, but we do see cycling with hurricanes similar to tornadoes as well. At this point, we could be teetering between a 4 for the next few advisories. The NHC is predicting it dials back down towards a Category 3 as it gets closer to Jamaica, but the warm waters have been so crucial to this storm's development, and that's something it will have in abundance not only in the Caribbean, but as it potentially makes its way out into the Gulf of Mexico or the Bay of Campeche. Tropical alerts are still in place for Haiti and the Dominican Republic, going through the worst of the impacts right now in terms of the tropical storm force wind gusts and even some storm surge. Jamaica, we are expecting impacts from the storm a little bit earlier than at once forecasted. Beryl moving really fast on its approach, and Jamaica on that dirtier edge of this system. Up next is the Cayman Islands, expecting impacts for that particular spot in the Caribbean by Wednesday evening, and then heading towards the eastern end of the Yucatan Peninsula, including Cancun, which is under a hurricane watch, as we get into Thursday, which is the 4th of July. Now, while Mexico doesn't celebrate the 4th of July, a lot of Americans capitalize on having a couple extra days of vacation, so it could be a pretty hopping tourist destination at this point. If we want to talk about the Jamaican mountains, this is something that could hinder Hurricane Beryl at this point. The mountainous terrain can disrupt the structure of tropical systems. It kind of slices and dices it up. And the peak mountaintop there, just over 7,400 feet. So that's a pretty tall mountain. But the flip side of this, while it could shred the core of Beryl and weaken it a touch, it will increase the flooding impacts for Kingston, as you have a lot of drainage and runoff coming out of the taller mountains. We'll put Beryl aside for a second. We will talk about it more throughout the broadcast, but we do want to discuss Invest 96L. And it's moving in the exact same path as Beryl. Whether this system develops into our next named storm, which would be Debbie, that D name, the Lesser Antilles, including St. Vincent's, the Grenadines, Grenada, all of these spots will see additional thunderstorm activity and potentially some rougher surf on the islands. And we've seen the devastation that have come out of some of the Leeward Islands. And so any kind of adverse weather conditions, not to mention any kind of tropical system, is a concern for not only tourists who are still potentially trying to get off of the island, but for locals and officials in the area. The presentation of Invest 96L, not very impressive, but if you look at what Beryl is just off towards its west, you can see the comparison between us. Beryl, major hurricane. Invest 96L, still trying to get its bearings and become more of an organized system. It's getting closer and closer to the Lesser Antilles, but overall that low wind shear that was once present for Beryl now shifting, and we are looking at some more wind shear. Now, if Beryl encountered this kind of wind shear, wouldn't be as much of an issue because it's already its own powerful storm. It can truck through 25 knots or so. But with this storm, it's not going to help it out very much. The moisture is something that is there, but we are looking at some drier air being deposited into the Lesser Antilles. Warm water is definitely there as well, with temperatures well into the 80s. And we're beginning to see powerful images already of Beryl's destruction on the ground. But what more can we learn about this storm from the sky? Hurricane hunters are reporting extreme turbulence and lightning as they fly directly into Beryl's eye. Major Jordan Menser, pilot with the 53rd WRS, joined Fox Weather to share his experience flying into the storm.
Well, hurricane hunters, they're reporting extreme turbulence and lightning as they fly directly into Beryl's eye. Now, Major Jordan, a pilot with the 53rd WRS, joins me now to share his experience flying into Beryl. Captain, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I know it's been a very busy past couple of days. Tell me a little bit more about what you've observed in this historic, powerful storm.
Yes, I mean, obviously, strong winds, lots of rain, and pretty destructive weather, obviously, that people experience on the ground, and the same stuff we're flying through up in the air. Sometimes it's a little bit different picture up in the air when we're flying through at 10,000 feet, but the data we're trying to gather, obviously, is on the surface, and so the data we collect basically sent off the National Hurricane Center. But yeah, it's basically been a pretty rough ride for the hurricane hunters. There's several of us out here right now, several crews. I think there's a crew out there right now. So yeah, been a rough ride for everybody.
You mentioned the data that you collect. Has any of that data been surprising to you, especially when you look at, this storm compared to others that you may have flown into?
Yeah, I mean, so each crew that flies it, we kind of see different things as far as what the storm is actually doing. I actually flew it, me and my crew flew it Sunday night into early Monday morning, and it was actually going through a eye wall restructuring. And so it had weakened a little bit, so we didn't see quite the strong winds and weather that some of our other crews have flown. But obviously, after the eye wall restructuring was done, it kind of got its act back together again, strengthened up again, and the crews that have flown it after us have experienced a little more intense weather than we did.
You know, for folks that aren't as familiar, you guys drop instrumentation called dropsons into basically the center of the storm and the periphery of the storm. What exact data are you guys measuring?
Yeah, so the data we're collecting with these dropsons is basically wind speed, temperature, pressure, humidity. So we're
Welcome,
basically getting a
guys. Welcome to
top-down
my
view of what the
channel.
storm is doing. Like I said, we go through a
Please
10,000
stay
feet, but
informed of the
forecasters and people on the
storm.
ground don't care
If
what's
you're
going
in
on at 10,000
Jamaica,
feet. They
Cayman
want to know what's going
Islands,
on the
and the
surface. So
Caribbeans,
this
please
dropson is
be
constantly sending
prepared.
information back to the airplane all the way till it hits the surface. And then we also do what's called fix the storm. So we go to the exact center of the storm where the wind speed is basically zero, and we mark that on the map. And so we send all that data back to the National Hurricane Center so they get an idea of what the storm is doing all the way to the surface and actually where that storm is tracking through us going through the center and marking where the actual center of the coordinates are.
Yeah, it's so important to know exactly where that center of circulation is, given the fact that it's basically surrounding where the most powerful part of the storm is. Last question for you. I know that you guys are super busy. Tell me about what your future flights into Beryl look like at this point.
So, like I said, I believe we have a crew out there flying it right now. My crew will actually take off in the morning, about 5 in the morning, and head out there. And we're scheduled for 2 fixes, basically 2 times that we're responsible for gathering data out there. And so we'll be flying it, I know, until at least tomorrow afternoon as it's hitting Jamaica. And as far as follow-on missions, that's all comes down from the National Hurricane Center. That'll be their decision, but as long as they need us to fly it, we'll fly it.
Absolutely. You guys will be with this and tracking the storm every step of the way. Major Jordan, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and for all the work that you and all the other folks at the National Hurricane Center and the Hurricane Hunters are doing. We really appreciate all of your data.
Absolutely, guys. Everybody stay safe out there.
Absolutely, you too.
We're going to bring things back stateside and show you this intense lightning show that was seen out in Friends, Nebraska on Monday night. This was from Fox Weather storm tracker Brandon Kopic. He's been out chasing the storms that we've seen rolling through the Great Plains and the upper Midwest, but that same trend is expected to continue all the way into the 4th of July holiday and for your travel home plans. Flood alerts are still widespread. They're lasting through Wednesday, but some spots will still hold on to their alerts a little bit longer. We are looking at some flooding that's been occurring on the sides of the Missouri River near St. Joseph. We're looking at flood warnings as well as flood watches in place. It is a very popular activity for a lot of people over the 4th of July holiday to head out to your lakes and river basins. But if there's been recent flooding in your area, some debris can get into the water as well, and the water can be moving fast. So proceed with caution over the next few days if you do decide to get into any of the water. The exclusive box model showing you what's in store for Wednesday evening. We're talking more thunderstorms and in multiple waves. One near southern Missouri through the Ozarks, and you head towards the Central Plains, Interstate 80, going to see a larger MCS system begin to develop. The primary threat here is going to be damaging winds as well as hail. St. Louis, as you enter into the early morning hours of our nation's birthday, we will see some thunderstorms. And the Ozarks, another popular vacation spot for folks across the Midwest and the Central Plains. So we have a lot of vacationers maybe unfamiliar with the terrain. If you do plan to get on a vacation, you want to make sure that you check in with your Airbnb or your hotel, know places to go if there is severe weather in your area, or if you are experiencing any flooding. By Thursday into the evening, this is where we can be talking about some impacts for your firework displays, Ohio River Valley, and portions of the northern plains through the Dakotas, and for Minneapolis as well. That will all head towards Milwaukee, Wisconsin into the overnight hours, but we can't forget that southern end of the storm. The severe storm threat is present for today. Tomorrow, 2 separate areas once again, one for the Central Plains and then the other for the Ohio River Valley. A tornado threat is there, especially with the discrete cells we'll watch pop up into the afternoon. But the big threat for the summer really is going to be that damaging wind. On Thursday, for the 4th of July, it's Kansas City, Joplin, and over to St. Louis, where we have that level 2 out of 5 for the holiday. That flash flood threat, which could make some travel be a little tricky. Interstate 70, I-44, I-55, as well under that level 2 out of 4 threat. But some of these spots already seeing flooding from the recent rain. But the flood threat will be a continued topic as the watershed continues to rise as we have more drain off emptying into the Missouri and Mississippi rivers. And this is one of the most amazing satellite loops you'll ever see. Coming from a meteorologist, but still, Beryl going from tropical depression to a Category 5 in just 4 days. We have much more on Beryl and its historic nature and the rest of the tropics next. You're watching Fox Weather at Night.
You got to frank it up.
Crank it up. Crank it up. Yeah.
It's the perfect blend of flavor and heat. I protect on everything.
Avoiding athlete's foot? Prevent it with Lotrimin Daily Prevention so you can go with confidence.
This week only at City's 4th of July event. Fire up the savings with up to 25% off doorbusters, plus 10% off store-wide or 36 months no interest. City Furniture, designed for love.
And the beach looked pretty nice out in Galveston, Texas. A lot of people enjoying it, maybe a bit windy. One thing that the video might not be showing you, just how hot it was. And that hot stretch for the southeast does continue. We have heat alerts out for much of Texas and the southern plains, but we're not far off from seeing a major shift in the pattern that could leave the west holding the heat wave hot potato as this potentially record-breaking heat dome develops. But truly, it's the majority of the United States, barring the upper Midwest and portions of the Great Lakes region, that will experience above average temperatures and not only a few degrees, but in some instances, 10, 20 degrees above average for certain stretches of the month. We'll start out west because this is a developing story, one that we'll talk about at least through this next week, and it does include the 4th of July holiday, the excessive heat out west. Heat advisories in place, excessive heat warnings, and excessive heat watches. We've watched as these alerts slowly started to get larger and larger. The biggest concern for me is the Pacific Northwest. A lot of these spots don't necessarily have air conditioning as they don't experience triple-digit heat very often. So for spots that don't have air conditioning, that can be a problem even when temperatures get to 85, 90 degrees, and even that might be a little too generous there. But it's all up and down the Golden State, so I'm sure a lot of people will be flocking to the beach to soak up that sea breeze there that comes in with the atmospheric pattern of the U.S. in the morning and into the evening hours as well. To put some numbers to it, though, For Wednesday, we're talking 111 degrees for Fresno, 113 for Palm Springs, Las Vegas 114, Portland even being in the mid 80s and reaching 92 by the 4th of July is exceptionally warm, and the temperatures are expected to remain steady, even that triple digit expanding a little more as we get into this upcoming weekend. Here's some potential record highs. Phoenix could be breaking a record at 115. And then we also have Redding, California at 118 degrees. Medford, 111. Portland, Oregon, sitting at 99. Death Valley, California, one of the hottest places in the world, especially in the United States, could even be breaking records of their own. The forecast temperatures here, 126 degrees. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. That is so hot. And this is a tourist destination for some people to experience this part of the country. If you go to this spot, make sure you're not out for very long at all, maybe 5-10 minutes, and you have to have a lot of water with you. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. That is the key for the next few weeks here for the West Coast. But I did mention the South, and it's a 4th of July scorcher for them as well. Excessive heat warnings for the mid-Mississippi River Valley heading in towards the I-20 corridor. Heat advisories extending in towards the southern plains and portions of the Ohio River Valley. Some of this heat and moisture that will be in place will aid in the forecast heat index, but also will help fuel some of the storms, even severe storms that we are expecting to see through the week. The heat index for the South, the hottest area is going to be Dallas, as well as San Antonio, Lufkin, Texas, Austin, Texas, my hometown, going to be a scorcher, but all the way up into St. Louis, we are talking upper 90s. Nashville, Tennessee, 106 degrees. We've seen heartbreaking scenes coming out of areas like Barbados, a country that was hit hard by Hurricane Beryl. Crews are now on the ground helping in any way that they can. Peter Bolt, UNICEF representative for the Eastern Caribbean, joined Fox Weather with the latest update on their damage.
Beryl is a very dangerous storm and continues to be a very dangerous storm. It hit us very early in the storm season, to be honest. UNICEF is here on the ground in Barbados, as well as in Grenada and St. Vincent. And while we kind of were lucky enough in Barbados to kind of just have the tail end, the fringe winds from the storm, the islands of Grenada and also St. Vincent and Grenadines were not as lucky. They sustained extreme damages and kind of devastating damages especially around the Grenadines and some of the smaller islands in Grenada. We're on the ground. We are kind of in touch with the authorities.
The new Lippman Tornado Spin Mop. Spill it, spin it, and mop it like it's hot. Learn more at Lippman.com.
This week only at City's 4th of July event. Fire up the savings with up to 25% off doorbusters, plus 10% off store-wide or 36 months no interest. City Furniture, designed for love.
Nature of some of these places make for you and the team when it comes to getting the recovery efforts started and quickly.
Absolutely. They are indeed beautiful islands, but also, I don't know, in very dangerous locations. The Caribbean is increasingly affected by these storms that also become increasingly more intense. And when the storm hits like that on these small and remote islands, it is always devastating. It affects every single piece of infrastructure. It affects every single person. So that doesn't help us in terms of setting up the relief efforts. We are working with the authorities. There's a lot of other partners in play here from the UN system. Other neighboring countries are coming to the rescue here. There's been a request for helicopters to get access. And we hope that we'll soon be able to deliver our support because the children in these affected islands do need it. We have large numbers of families and children in shelters at the moment because of the significant number of houses destroyed. And they are in need of almost everything, water and sanitation, especially food, but also bedding. But besides that, also, ensure that their protection is guaranteed living in these close quarters. And these shelters are often schools. Thankfully, the schools are mostly out for the school season now. But I know the situation is not ideal.
Yeah, this is such a devastating storm, and to your point, so early in the season, we still have so much of it still to go. So we know this is a very challenging task. We thank you and your team for what you're doing. We wish you well. A UNICEF representative for the Eastern Caribbean, Peter Bull, thank you.
And historic Beryl is moving fast and caught many off guard. Devastation in the Caribbean has forced residents and visitors alike to think on their feet. Earlier today, we spoke with a couple who rode out the storm in their sailboat in Grenada.
We are watching this very closely. You know, insurance requires us to be in Grenada by July 1, and that's what we were doing. We were in the Tobago Keys when we saw this forming much south from us, and we immediately the next morning said, hey, we got to get to Grenada and get to our spot. And our initial spot was Prickly Bay in the mooring field. And as the storm got closer and we kept just really aggressively watching the track, we said, hey, we don't feel comfortable with this. And we actually went through Hurricane Ian 2 years ago, right after we bought our boat, and learned from others about going to the mangroves and just tying up to the mangroves. So that's exactly what we did. We found the best hurricane hole in Grenada. We tucked in here. What you see behind me here, we have 3 stern lines, 2 anchors out, and that proved really well for us and everyone else in this bay too. So I definitely think it was the right decision.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool. I mean, real quickly too. Was this a vacation? Was this like a trip you've been planning for a long time, or was this something you mentioned insurance? Was this a work-related trip?
No, actually, so we are full-time cruisers, and we actually document our travels on YouTube every week. So we have been actually on our boat for this November will be 2 years. We've done 9,000 miles at sea. And unfortunately now coming into our 3rd hurricane season, we've now had 2 major storms. Emily mentioned Hurricane Ian that hit Fort Myers. We were just 60 miles north of it when it turned at the last minute. And we were bracing for a major impact at that point in time. Thankfully, we didn't have that. We have now done all of the Caribbean. We come to Grenada, which is supposed to be outside of the hurricane belt, only to miss this hurricane by, like 30 nautical miles at best.
My word. I mean, you had, and we're looking at that video, you had the rain bands that were moving in. Even in Grenada, and Emily and Cole, I know you guys know this, we had arguably hurricane force winds at the airport in Grenada, a 121 mile per hour wind gust. Now that might be an elevated station that was there. You said insurance requires you to get there by July 1st. That's because of hurricanes, right? I'm sure that after weathering Ian, based on that experience, your hope, Emily, was that we would not have to deal with this again, but this was uncomfortably close.
Yeah, it was super close. As Emily mentioned, we came into a hurricane hole, and we are surrounded, about 80% of us, this hurricane hole, or lagoon, if you will, is surrounded by large mountains. So anywhere from 150 to 300, maybe even 400 feet of elevation around us. So we were really, really protected from the winds. And even then, like you mentioned, we were definitely, there was about 45 minutes there where it really intensified, and we were really, really nervous.
We've been talking to other cruisers who are around and just trying to really learn, but unfortunately our knowledge right now is kind of limited to what we see on the water. We don't have a car, obviously, because we live on a boat, so it's not like we can just go drive around. And we just got here, so we don't have any contacts on the ground. We literally just got here for the start of this. So it's just going to be time to get out and see. We certainly know north of us in Carriacou is absolutely devastated. We've seen the drone footage floating around there, and just absolutely heartbreaking what they've gone through there. But I think at least as far as where we are in Grenada, what we can see from the water, the houses, the roadways, it looks like everything is pretty well okay, at least in this immediate area.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to hear. I mean, a very close call, and one that you were probably not expecting as you were just sailing. Emily and Cole Cruz, thank you so much for joining us. The Adventure Cruise. Nice play on words there with the last name. Thanks again, and glad you guys are safe.
And here's another pretty unique view of Beryl, this time from a sail drone. Sail drones are gathering valuable data, but it sure looks like a rough ride out there. You couldn't pay me to go out in that kind of choppy weather. Significant wave heights, which is an average of the largest 1/3 of the waves the buoy measured, was up to 21 feet. We've got a lot more on Beryl and your weather across the country next. You're watching Fox Weather at Night.
If you listen carefully, you'll hear a rhythm in the markets. The markets compose their own tunes, and once you learn to listen for them, you'll catch yourself humming along.
You got to frank it up.
Crank it up. Crank it up. Yeah.
It's the perfect blend of flavor and heat. I put it on everything.
Tahini, the irresistible blend of chili, lime, and sea salt. As unique as you.
This week only at City's 4th of July event. Fire up the savings with up to 25% off doorbusters, plus 10% off store-wide or 36 months no interest. City Furniture, designed for love.
Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to log off now, so I'll catch you guys another time. Thank you so much. You guys be safe.